It's my pleasure to join you today to share some thoughts about reproductive technologies, but let me assure you that I'm looking forward to the time when we can really have this discussion face to face again. In the limited time we have today, I want to just make sure that you're aware of some resources we have to help improve success with your estrus synchronization and AI program, and then spend most of our time probably looking quickly at some sex semen applications and how we can kind of look at them from an economic basis. I'm a member of the Beef Reproduction Task Force, and our group in the last year has consolidated 2 websites into this beefrepro.org. And on that we have past proceedings and recordings from our Applied Reproductive Strategies meetings, as well as a variety of resources that I want to share with you. The recommended 2021 protocols are shown here. Do look for current dates to know that that's what you are looking at. We know there are a lot of options out there, but what we've tried to do is create a short list of things that have been shown to work through extensive research as well as field settings, and useful and effective in a variety of situations. The task force has also created a YouTube channel, and on that YouTube channel you can get the recordings from our 2020 virtual Applied Reproductive Strategies meeting, as well as a monthly webinar series that we're holding. The next webinar will be March 17th, and you can sign up for that by going to beefrepro.org or following us on Facebook. Also on beefrepro.org, you'll find a link to the Estrus Synchronization Planner. That tool will help make sure you get the protocol you've selected delivered with the right products on the right day and in the right time interval. The 2021 version of the Synchronization Planner has added some options to use both conventional and sex semen and split-timed AI. I want to spend just a little bit of time then talking about how we might apply those with sex semen. This is an example of the 14-day Cedar Protocol for heifers set up for split-timed AI. So we have our traditional 14-day Cedar in place, wait 16 days and give prostaglandin. At the time we give prostaglandin, we want to go ahead and apply a heat detection aid. Then at our normal fixed timed AI period, 66 hours after prostaglandin, we want to evaluate and see those animals that have been in heat by that time point and go ahead and inseminate those. And in this case, we'd want to use sex semen. 20 to 24 hours later then, we'll bring all the remaining individuals back. If they have evidence that they've been in heat, then we're going to give them sex semen, and no need to give GnRH if they've been in heat. And anything that's not shown estrus to this point, we'll use conventional semen and GnRH to induce estrus. By allowing some additional time for a few more animals to come in heat, and then not using sex semen on these that have not been in heat, this is probably one of the ways that we can optimize the number of sex semen pregnancies as well as pregnancy rate. Now, an example of using this sex semen in cows is shown here with a 7-day protocol. And the same idea applies in that we're going to apply a heat detection aid at the time we remove the cedar and give prostaglandin. And then at the time of fixed timed AI, if the patch is activated, we can use sex semen and no need to give GnRH. Then if they have not shown estrus, we use conventional semen and no GnRH. So the number one rule I want you to think about when using sex semen is best used in animals that have already been in heat. And if we're strictly putting in sex semen after heat detection, we want to do that a little bit later than we would with conventional semen, targeting a period of 16 to 22 hours after the onset of estrus, if we're strictly using heat detection. Now, the 7 and 7 sync protocol has gotten a lot of popular press coverage lately. It's worked well in the limited settings where we have data. In those cases, the cows were in excellent body condition and were the earliest to calve. And the estrus response looked really good, which makes it attractive for use with sex semen. We have included this protocol as an option in the estrus synchronization planner, but we have not put it on our short list of recommended protocols until we see some data in a wider range of situations. To give you a little better feel for some of the type of results people are getting with sex semen, I want to share some field data that Dr. Odie has collected with one of his students. And you can see there's 4 different groups of cows here, and we'll work through each group. Now, they used 2 different sires. One was a maternal sire to generate more maternally oriented female calves, and another was a Charolais sire trying to generate terminal steer calves. So the heifer group, they used an MGA prostaglandin system, and they used estrus detection, checking about every 4 hours. You see they did an excellent job of detecting estrus, and the heifers were certainly ready with this 95% estrus response rate. And the AI pregnancy then from sex semen is very attractive, and this would be a good result with conventional semen. So again, this was using heat detection. Okay, they had 2 groups of cows that they used a split time approach. So they gave them 2 chances to show heat. So with the 7-day protocol, at the first time period, anything that had an activated, had signs of estrus, they inseminated with sex semen. 20 to 24 hours later, they repeated that process. But in this case, they would have put sex semen in everything, regardless of if they were in estrus or not. See, the results are not quite as good as their heat detection only. And the other thing I would comment on this maternal sire is they did have some data to show he responded very well in terms of fertility in these with sex semen. And that's always good to ask that question to see if that information is available. The other group of mature cows then just underwent a single fixed timed AI. And you see a slightly lower pregnancy rate in that case. And about 70% of the cows had shown estrus to that time point. I think this makes a good example of the range of pregnancy rates that we have seen in the published literature and that you might expect. And you do see a clear indication, higher estrus response, more heat detection, a higher pregnancy rate than where we have a lower estrus response. And so again, the best option is to put that sex semen in females that we know have been in heat. Now, I want to walk you through a couple examples where we tried to put some numbers to the economics of using sex semen. And so in this first example, my assumptions are a herd of 300 head of black cows. They need a 15% replacement rate, or 45 heifers ready to calve with their first calf. They are all black, and they would like to incorporate heterosis if possible. Now, if we're trying to do this with conventional semen, in order to generate 50 maternal females, they would have to inseminate 170 of these cows to a maternal sire to get that number of maternal-oriented females. And I'm using a 60% AI pregnancy rate as an assumption in this case. Now, if I'm using sex semen, I would only need to inseminate 103 cows to get the same number of maternal females. And the big difference then also shows up in the number of maternal-oriented males or total terminally sired calves. So I've got essentially 67 more terminal sired calves when I use this sex semen, which should have some advantage to it. So if we look at a partial budget to try and assess those increased cost, decreased returns in a partial budget format, replacing conventional semen with sex semen to generate maternally sired replacements, one clear increased cost, and this would be over AI, existing AI, is the premium we pay for sex semen, which is anywhere from $10 to $50 or more, but more typically in that $15 to $20 range. If we have more heifer calves being born, generally there's less calving difficulty. May be hard to put a number to, but certainly an advantage. From the increased return side, if we can make these replacement heifers into F1s easily so that we're creating a crossbred female, that probably has some real advantages from future performance of those females. Then the ability to add more terminally sired calves would be another increased return. So we have more calves, and we would assume those calves would probably be heavier at the time we sold them. Now, the lower pregnancy rate expected from the sex semen would have some calves born essentially 21 days later, and the only thing to add there is that likely they would then be out of the terminal sire, which, whether that would be a wash in total weight, you'd have to determine that for your situation. So just trying to put some numbers to this then, went ahead and used a dollar value of $30 premium for sex semen. And again, I think it's on the high side, but I elected to use that for this example. Now, if I'm creating F1 female, say a Hereford Angus female where I was a straight Angus before, I think that has a real value. It's hard to put a number to it, but I'll share with you what my colleague Bob Weber would say about the value of a crossbred cow, and he was putting that at anywhere from $100 to $150 per year because of the improvement in weaning weight per cow exposed due to heterosis. We know that a crossbred female will probably stay in the herd a year and a half to 2 years longer, and that has a great value. So in this example, I put this $100 value on there, and I think there are some long-term effects, benefits, but for now we just have this round number in our budget. We should have roughly 67 more terminally sired calves. If they are 25 pounds heavier at this price, then I've got another $2,500 of benefit in this part of the budget. Again, we'd have a few younger calves. I have them 21 days, 2 pounds a day, 42 pounds lighter, but because they could be sired by the terminal sire, then that could be much less. So I have a little less than $400 there on this particular situation. So what I want you to focus on here is that if this were only a $20 premium, it looks like maybe these terminal sired calves alone could potentially pay for the increased cost of sex semen in a program that's already using some AI. Obviously, one needs to understand the value of these different sired calves as well as gender of calf as you're making these estimates for yourself. Now I have another example I want to share that looks at the effect of selecting really for a terminal market, trying to make as many steers as we can by using Y-bearing sex semen. I'm going to use some price assumptions that come from some of the Superior Livestock Analysis Summary that Esther McCabe worked on as part of her graduate work, and what was reported to 2016, and so I think there's about 4 or 5 years worth of data, and the average Angus steer price and the Angus heifer price are shown here. So it gives us about a $14 differential. And there's certainly indications that there may be times when that's a much greater premium, and that's something some people may be able to take advantage of. For this example, I'm using a sex semen premium of $20 and assuming a 90% wean calf crop. I found in the literature some weaning weights of steers and heifers based on the calving period they were born in. So these each represent a 21-day period. And so essentially what I did was looked at altering the proportion of steers and heifers during this first 21-day period for different AI or sex semen pregnancy rates. So the proportion during the first period varied, then the second and third period each remained at 50%, assuming that was a cleanup natural service and we wouldn't influence that gender. So the numbers that we generated are shown here. Here's the three different calving distributions I looked at. So 60% calved the first 21 days, 33% the second 21 days, and 7% that third period. You'll note that I didn't vary anything in that third period, being fairly conservative. It's most likely that as you get down to this 40% during that first period, likely be seeing a few more slip over here. So we're fairly conservative. So this first line then shows conventional semen where we have an equal number of steers and heifers. And using the prices I showed you, the calf sale value per exposed cow is about $900. Now, if we get a 60% pregnancy rate with our sex semen, we can shift this ratio to 74 steers to 26 heifers. Remember, we're just making that shift in that first 21-day period. And essentially, that gives us a $16 advantage compared to the equal distribution of genders. If the AI pregnancy rate is 50%, we have essentially 70% steers to 30% heifers. We still have an advantage over this equal split. If the pregnancy rate is down to 40, then we are now below the conventional 50-50 split. Now, this doesn't account for situations where increasing this proportion of steer calves may allow you to sell a single or multiple load lots. We know that if we can group calves in that size of a package, that they're worth a little bit more. So that would be another potential way to add value. So if we think back to some of the field data I showed you, you see that value. Those pregnancy rates are falling right in this range from losing $5 to gaining $6. They're right in there. And depending on what this differential price is in steer and heifers, that magnitude could be more or less. And of course, that's not a static value. So my hope is that by trying to look at different parts of these budgets, knowing that none of them are complete, but it would help you think through some opportunities to use sex semen, whether it's generating maternal females or targeting more steer calves and increased weight that way. I think there's some opportunities. Would certainly suggest that would go into good, strong AI programs rather than your first shot at AI is starting with sex semen. Walk before you run. But I do think there's going to be some opportunities here. And the price of sex semen, I think, or the premium we pay for that, I don't think is going to go higher, and hopefully will look more attractive over time. So learning how and where to make this technology pay for you is something I think is really worth exploring. So I hope You've learned about some resources we've had available for you there at BeFreePro.org. Remember to use sex semen on females that are heat, and look for those opportunities where you can make the most of gender selection. Be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.